You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Bri and Thais, episode number Lucky 13.
Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Bri Seeley. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
A movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this.
Hey Amplifiers,
Hey.
Bri Seeley here,
And Thais.
and we have another epic podcast for you today. We're so excited.
Always excited.
Always.
Always epic.
Thais and I talk a lot about the words that we overuse, and those are absolutely two of the words that we overuse.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this right now. This is where I'm at in my life.
You know, if exciting and epic are the worst of our...
Seriously. It's a
Like,
good problem to have,
it
I'd
is.
say. All right, so today we're talking surrender. Surrender. And what does it mean to surrender? And how do you surrender? And what does it look like to surrender? And how does it feel like to surrender?
Wait, before we do that, can I do one thing?
Yes, you can do one thing.
Hold on, do you think I can find what I'm looking for before...
Dun, 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 dun,
I want to
dun,
read.
dun,
We
dun.
got a really great review that I want to read because Thais and I are obsessed with it.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
I don't know if my computer will iTunes Store be amplified.
If you're not subscribed yet to our podcast, this is the best opportunity for you to do that. And download and rate and review. We love to read our reviews when we remember. We love to read it on air because we
Yes.
love you and we love the love that we receive from you. And so if you have a hot second and you want to leave us a sweet review, we would appreciate it.
All right, this is one of our favorite reviews.
Oh, yes. I love this review.
You ready?
Yes.
It's like church with F-bombs. I love how Bri and Thais ask every guest, what does it look like to live an amplified life? The interviews are so authentic. Every guest is unique and inspiring, and every episode reminds me to check in with my own life. Am I living to my potential? What can I do to get further? If you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, podcasts count, right?
Totally count.
Then every listener will up-level their associations by hanging out with Bri and Thais. Listening to Be Amplified is like having a cocktail with your BFFs, only in church and with F-bombs. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's like having cocktails in church with your best friends and F-bombs. That's amazing. And that's exactly what we want to give the feel of. So thank you. Amazing, amazing, Mira, for that beautiful review.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into surrender.
Awesome. Surrender.
Yeah, so let's get into what is surrendering, because I think that right there's a lot of controversy around. And I think when we can clear what that looks like, then we can get into the rest of the conversation.
Awesome. So for me, it's kind of, well, I'll share with you guys. I had a moment last year where I was getting ready to quit my business. Like I was getting ready to say fuck it to everything. So I was in this moment where I had been essentially squeezing the life out of my business. Like I'd been super control mode. Everything has to be this way and it has to look this way. And I felt like I had my hands around like the neck of my business and I was wringing it out. And things weren't working. Things weren't flowing. I was in a financial situation and I just like everything was kind of not ideal. And I had a moment of surrender where I just had to throw my hands up and I started applying for waitressing jobs. And I was just like, fuck it. If this is what it has to look like, if this is what, the universe has in store for me, if this is life, then this is it. And I can't control it and I can't be upset about it. And I just had to throw my hands up and just literally let go. What is that saying? Let go and let God.
Yeah.
That to me was like the ultimate moment of surrender, which was then followed by one of the most successful months of my business.
Yeah. I remember for me, it was in college, and I, at that moment, had a pretty serious binge eating disorder, and I had lost my boyfriend and I at the time we're no longer together, and he was my quote unquote soulmate and the one I was going to marry and have 30 million children with. And we had broken up, and it was a pretty devastating breakup. But then I lost most of my friends in that quote unquote separation because I had mono, so I had mononucleosis, which made me not a very pleasant person. And so anyway, I had lost everything. I was in the middle of binge eating. It was a very devastating time in my life, and I went up to Boston early. That's why I went to school for my last year in Boston, and it took what I call a dark night of the soul, or a moment where I hit rock bottom, and I had no idea what to do with myself, and no idea what to do with all these horrendous thoughts inside my head about what a bad, awful person I am. And yeah, I had to pray because I had no idea what else to do, and I totally surrendered. I was like, I don't know what to do, but I need help. And that's when I heard a response from wherever I heard the response from, God, universe, higher self, whatever. And that's what started my journey for me of spirituality and getting into the coaching world and being where I am today. And so these moments where we release our will is the moment where we decide that there's an opportunity for us to co-create. And I think that's really what surrender looks like. And it's not so much about not doing. So when we think of surrender, it doesn't mean you don't do. Surrendering is not, well, I'm just not going to get up and go to work today. That's not surrendering. That's giving up. Surrendering is doing your part, doing the work, doing what's being called of you, while letting go of how it has to look, and letting go of the result, and letting go of the need for it to be a certain way in order for you to be fulfilled and in order for you to be happy, and giving space for miracles to occur.
So, Thais, do you believe that in order to surrender, one must believe in a higher power?
No. Although if you don't believe in a higher power, you don't deserve to live. Just kidding. So I was atheist for a long, long part of my life, a very angry atheist. And I was doing just fine, thank you very much. So I don't think necessarily you have to believe in a higher power in order to surrender, but I do believe that you have to trust that you can be in a space where things can happen and positive things can happen to you without you necessarily having to do it all. I guess that there is a way that you can create space in your life for things to unfold in a way that is beyond miraculous, beyond what you thought was possible. And you have to give space in your life to make that happen. It's kind of like if you have your cup totally filled with your ideas and your expectations and the way you think it has to be, there's no space for anything else to come in. And yeah, so I mean, I think that believing in a higher power, believing that there's something greater than yourself out in the universe, can be tremendously supportive and can make you feel not so alone and can make you feel like they're more purposeful in life. But I definitely don't think it's a necessity. um yeah, that's what I think.
So, let's talk about control and surrender,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's when I had my issue last year. I feel like it stemmed just out of this need to have control and have everything be my way and just be the master of my,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I just had a workshop on surrender actually earlier this year, and a lot of the conversation around control is really fear. I mean, when you believe that things are going to happen and they're going to happen in your favor, why you won't find the need to control. So the fact that you have the need to control and have it be like exactly the way you want it to be is because you're operating from a place of fear. And so it's important for you to look at, what are you afraid of? What is the fear? What is your ego trying to tell you or trying to convince you that may be coming up for you? And the more you give space to acknowledge the fact that everything you do comes from a good intention, so you must first look at what that intention is before you can change the behavior. And you can allow the fear to come up and come through. That's when you can find healing, and that's when you can actually process. I believe that surrendering is a natural state, just like forgiveness is a natural state. Love, compassion, all these qualities that are inherently good within us are a natural state. And so if we're not experiencing our natural state, it means that something's blocking it.
So, Thais, what was the underlying fear when you were feeling the need for all of the control before you surrendered?
Yeah, so for me, my binge eating and my need for control had everything to do with me believing that I'm not good enough and that I'm not worthy and that I'm inherently broken and inherently bad. And I was terrified that this was true for me. And so I would do anything to cover that up. I would overexercise. I would go into dramas with my friends. I would fight with my boyfriend. I created a very strong armor outside of me to hide the very uh, sensitive, weak part within me that felt that I was inherently broken. And so I really had to create a lot of space. It took 8 years for me to find full healing around my binge eating, but I had to create a lot of space around what if I'm not inherently broken? What if my fear of being inherently broken is more terrifying than finding out that I'm broken? And what does that even look like? And why is being broken so bad? And what if I'm not broken at all? What if that's all just, stories and beliefs that I've accumulated over the years? Yeah, surrendering is hard, and it's a process, and it really really has to happen by you looking at why you have the hardness, what is blocking you from the natural state of surrender. If you don't do that work, surrendering is never going to happen to you. And that's why I don't think the advice like, oh, you just need to let it go. Just let it go. Obviously, just he's a douche. Just ignore him. These very nice advice that we receive are actually not very helpful, because if it were that easy, we would do it. If it were that easy, it would just happen. And the fact that it's not that easy means that there's something blocking it. And that's what we have to look at. Why can you not let go? Why can you not forgive? Why are you holding on to this? What are you getting from holding on to this? What lower self pleasure, what part of you is actually enjoying not letting go of this? Yeah. What about you? What does it look like for you, Bri, to be in a state of surrender and to be in a state of flow?
I mean, really, last year was such a huge one for me, and I think I stopped having attachment to expectations.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Um, stopped stopped telling the story that it was supposed to look a certain way. Stopped.
Why is that so hard?
We get so attached to like the fact that it has to be XYZ way.
Why?
And
Why do we do that?
especially, I don't know. I mean, just humanity. Like
Yeah.
it's a sense of security for us. If we can control the outcome, then we're safe.
Yeah.
Versus, the fear of the unknown or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, for me, for the longest time, I have always told the story that I am alone and that I don't have anyone in my life to support me and that I have to be the one to make it all happen. And so I think that that's where my pushing came in with my business, where I was like, no one else is going to make this happen and I have to do it and it has to look this way and this has to be the outcome and blah, 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 blah. And it was really the second that I just threw my hands up and said, fuck it, that I allowed the universe to kind of come in with all this magic that I couldn't see before because I was so focused on it looking a certain way.
It's very easy for us to surrender the things that we don't give a shit about, you know? And that's the stuff that oh yeah, I can totally let that go. I can totally surrender that. But it's the things that we really want, the things that we're so attached to. That's what's hardest to let go. And that's what's most important. That's the stuff that requires real support around and real co-creation and a real sense of not doing it alone.
Yeah. So for me, I think the two areas where that's biggest is in my business and then in finding a partner.
Yeah, I know that's been a big one for you.
Yeah. It is. It's hard to like know what to do or where to put your energy or
Yeah.
both in business and finding a partner. It's
Well, sometimes we just do so much work. We're just working, 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 and doing so much, expecting it to be a certain way. And then when it doesn't happen that way, it can be so frustrating. And it's a kind of loss. It's a kind of grieving process when you do all this stuff and you put so much expectation on this one person or this one opportunity, and then it doesn't happen the way we want it to happen. It's a grief. It's a loss. And it's important that we spend time grieving, because if you don't give space to grieve, then you're stuffing your emotions, and that stuff ends up coming back up anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think really for me, a lot of surrender is just releasing the expectations and trusting that no matter what the outcome is, it's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of the conversation around manifesting is we manifest what we need, not what we want. And it's very easy to feel like we're in 100% control of our lives, and that's why people cling to manifesting. They think, oh, if I just do this and live as if, and I just make all this stuff happen and pretend I already have it, then I'm gonna have it, and it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be immediate. And the problem with that conversation is that that's not quite how it works, because most of the times what we manifest is our unconscious beliefs. What we manifest is things that we need in order to heal. What we manifest are opportunities that are going to grow us to the next level. And if we always got what we wanted, and if it was that easy, we would never grow. We would never experience compassion, because compassion comes from suffering. And suffering means not always getting what you want, and learning that that's okay. And learning that the part of you, the immature part of you that wants it your way and wants it your way now, that's the little kid within you that needs a lot of space to vocalize, and a lot of space to acknowledge, and to listen and to heal, because most of the times that's who's running the show.
I mean, I feel like I could make a deal where I would still agree to grow if I got everything I want.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
like
Yeah,
I think I could probably be okay with that, and I
Yeah.
would like sign on the red line.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
Can we
I'm
do
sure
that?
I'm sure everybody would, if they could get what they want and still grow. It'd be a pretty
Well, I mean,
utopian.
I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job lately of getting what I want and growing at the same time.
Yeah, and it's just it didn't come at the time that you
Oh,
wanted.
of
It didn't
course.
come in the way that you wanted. It was completely not what you thought it was going to happen. So like, yeah, we ultimately, all our desires lead us down a path that we need to go down. Whether or not we manifest our specific desire or something better is not up to us. We just have to trust the process. And I think that's what you did. You trusted the process, you continued to show up, and it started to come in ways that you didn't even know was going to come when you let go of it having to be the way you wanted it to be.
So let's talk a little bit about gratitude quick.
Yeah, let's talk gratitude.
Because I feel like it really relates into this.
Yeah.
Um, I see a lot of separation in people for being unhappy with where they are and wanting these new things. And I feel like the thing that keeps people where they are is not being okay with what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like gratitude's a great conversation to bring in to this piece of
Yeah,
where
well,
we're at.
I think what's interesting is that creativity actually comes from limitation, and creativity and the desire to manifest something is creates a tension within us, a tension that most of us are not comfortable with, and it's the tension of not quite having what we want yet, and knowing that we want it, and knowing we're willing to take action on it, and not exactly sure how it's all going to unfold, right? It creates a tension within us, and oftentimes that tension can break us if we forget the why behind what we're doing, and the gratitude of what we already have. And so tension is important in creativity. It's actually essential. And the way that we can bear it and actually birth our purpose, birth our art into the world in that tension, is by maintaining gratitude for what we have. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. I remember so many times I called my mom breaking down because I didn't have what I wanted, and I just don't know why, and why isn't it happening to me, and blah blah blah. And she was like, you need to be in gratitude. Everything comes from gratitude. Everything flows from gratitude. Gratitude is the natural way to surrender, because when you can be grateful for what you have, right, everything else unfolds naturally, and you're not so caught up in having it to be the way you want it to be, because you feel safe knowing that you already have what you want.
Yeah, I think it's what is it? The science of getting rich that talks about the more gratitude you have, basically, the closer you are to source, and the closer you are to source, then of course unfolds everything in divine perfection.
Mm. It's all about feeling good. And gratitude is a way to feel good. And when we feel good, we take action that is empowering. And when we take action that's empowering, we're more likely to vibrate in the frequency of the person that has what they want. And then are much more likely to get it.
Yeah. What's do you have a gratitude practice or something that helps remind you to stay in gratitude?
Yeah, I do a gratitude journal every day. I write out like my top 5 to 10 things I'm grateful for. And
Is
sometimes,
Chewy on there every day now?
Chewy, my dog. Yes, I love my doggy. Or like Chewy kisses. But I write gratitude not only for what I have, but also for what is coming for me. Because I think that it's almost a little easy to be grateful for what we have, because we already have it, so it's easy. And it's not so easy to be grateful for what's not yet to come. And so I do both. Sometimes I'll write like I'm grateful for my beautiful 6-bedroom home that I love to live in every day. And then the next line, I'm grateful for Chewy. or I'm grateful for my partner, or I'm grateful for the clients that I have in my life.
Or me.
Or you. Yeah. So I kind of mix it up. And so it makes me feel like I already have it all. And I already have it now. And I have the life that I love. And when we fill up our soul with that type of love, we can just be so much happier. I'm assuming you have a gratitude practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go in and out of it. I don't do it every day, but I try and do it most days.
Yeah.
I
It's
use
good.
the 5-minute journal.
Yeah. Gratitude practice is essential, peoples. It's essential to the art of surrendering. It's essential to being in the flow. It's essential to all good things.
Well, and why not be grateful? Like, our world's pretty fucking awesome. I mean, yes, there's a lot of shitty things that are happening right now, but our life is I don't know, life is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you be grateful for it?
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
All right, amplifiers, we are about to bring on our guest for today, and she is a phenomenal woman.
I am so excited. I've connected with her through Facebook, and oh my gosh, first off, her eyes. I mean, you can like see her soul through her eyes. She's just beautiful inside and out. And we're so excited to have Ashley on our podcast today.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am going to tell the listeners just a little bit more about you so that they have an idea of who you are before we get started. Ashley is an empowerment coach, an inspirational speaker, and a writer on a mission to help people everywhere unlock their full potential. She overcame years of depression and suicidal ideology as a child to honor her life's purpose of helping others unlock their full potential. All areas of Ashley's life are infused with a heartfelt combination of passion and compassion. Through her public speaking, writing, art, and charitable projects, she plants the seed of possibility in the hearts of those she touches. She's an expert on helping you overcome self-sabotage so you can truly come from a place of authentic power and presence. Ashley is a yoga instructor, a Reiki master, a healer, and the co-founder of ABC Charity, a global art project based on kids helping kids.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Ashley. We are so excited. And the way we start all of our interviews is by asking our guests. So we'll ask you the same question, which is, what does it look like for you to live an amplified life?
Yeah, what an awesome question. You know, that's just so incredible. And for me, when I think about living an amplified life, it's making choices that empower rather than disempower me. Choices that allow me to live more in connection with a state of love and truth and peace rather than, you know, a state of fear and shame. And just constantly making those choices. And the more empowered choices I make, the more amplified my life becomes. So that's really, that's the source of it for me, is really the power of choice.
That's beautiful. So I know that wasn't necessarily always your story or your way of doing things. So when did that kind of shift for you? Was there something that catalyzed that in your life that caused you to shift your perspective? And what did that look like?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, my journey was really, really crazy. It took me a long time to learn that lesson, that I really had the power to change my life through my choice. As you mentioned in my bio, I struggled with suicide attempts and depression for a very long time when I was younger. And the main point which that switched for me was when I did a 21-day vow of silence in Southeast Asia. And, you know, I went through a period of time after 7 days that I thought I was actually going to go insane. And I kind of, my last thought was that my parents were going to find me in a Thai mental institution, and I'd finally lost my mind. But somewhere just beyond that chaos of my mind, between the war between the victim and the victor, was this peace that came. And I had no thoughts for a couple of weeks. And when I came out of that, I realized that I wasn't really who I thought I was, and that everything I was always running away from, I could have just run towards, and I didn't have to go across the world, and I didn't have to do a vow of silence. I just had to be with myself long enough to see the truth of who I am, so I could actually make the choices to either believe or not the thoughts I was thinking. And I realized that my thoughts and the story about myself was really the root of all my suffering.
That's really powerful. And I hear a lot of yoga philosophy coming from you. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I absolutely love Ashtanga yoga and restorative yoga. And so that's so great that that has been such a modality for you. Tell us, how did you come upon the path of the yogi?
The path of the yogi. It's funny. I feel like it was always in me. I think those of us who stick to that path, there's something that just resonates within us, when we find it. When I was 8 was actually the first time I tried to take my life. And from that day, I promised myself that I was going to make it out to help other people. So my journey to trying to find my way out started at that very young age. And I started looking into things even like Buddhism and Eastern philosophy and, all different kinds of philosophy. And I think that was really the gateway into me having a deeper understanding of that kind of philosophy and the pull and attraction towards yoga. Especially towards, using our body to release ourselves from our emotions and get ourselves out of our mind as well, which I think is an incredible tool.
I completely agree. So what's so interesting about your story is that I remember in middle school when everyone, I don't even know why this question was relevant or why it was even asked, but people were asked, like, what's your religion? And we had to, raise our hands if we were Catholic or if we were Christian. And me being the little girl who wanted to be different than everybody else, I raised my hands for Buddhism. I loved the idea that in Buddhism, that life is suffering. For a 12-year-old who was going through middle school crisis, that just felt so fun for me, that life is suffering. Yes, I finally have, a modality, a religious modality that I can wrap my head around. And that kind of matured, obviously, as I grew older. But Buddhism remained my introduction to spirituality because it is so non-threatening and so it's really a path. It's not a religion. It's not dogmatic statements that you have to believe in. It's a spiritual inquiry. And so that's beautiful that was your path as well. And that's how you started to engage in these conversations.
Yeah. And I think, I've done so much different exploring from even, personal development to Buddhism to whatever. But one thing that's always stuck with me in Buddhism is, the root of all suffering is our desire not to suffer. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me when you tell the story about yourself being 12 and having that experience. But so many of us are caught in that age where, we're still that 12-year-old inside. We're still the 8-year-old. We're still this young being. And so many of us don't allow ourselves to feel these thoughts and experiencing, and we don't embrace our suffering that we even felt back then. So we have these symptoms and these recurrences of the same thing over and over again until it's healed. So that really came up for me when you were saying that. I'm like, it's very interesting because I think that the reason why Buddhism relates to so many people is that we're all looking for permission to feel the way we feel, and to, some of the shame and these feelings that we have that we're carrying with us, we just want to be able to acknowledge them and have the permission to feel them and not be ashamed of them.
Oh, yeah. I don't know where I read this, but I've read a story about a little girl who was crying hysterically because she didn't know how to handle her parents fighting. And an angel came down, and the angel said to her, honey, let me help you. I'm going to help you by making you forget this. I'm going to help you by stuffing these feelings down, because right now, honey, you can't handle these feelings and they're overwhelming you. And I want you to experience love at this age. So, honey, I'm going to help you by putting your feelings down below you. But the only thing I ask of you is that when you get older and you get more mature, that you take the path and you start to explore these feelings again. And luckily, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to bring experiences, and I'm going to bring opportunities for you to revisit this moment and to re-explore these feelings that you're not able to handle right now. And that story is so touching to me because I think that is our life's journey, right? That is the whole purpose of the childhood and the adulthood, which is, the childhood is the learning of how to be ourselves in the world. And then the adulthood is learning how to unpack all the stuff that we were not able to handle in our childhood. So I love, love, love that you're saying this, because I think that's so relevant to so many of us who are finding ourselves stuck in these patterns again and again, manifesting the same situations again and again. And those are really a gift for us to explore something deeper.
100%. And I say within every instance of pain can lie your greatest purpose and your greatest power. And in fact, it can be your greatest tool for presence. If you can just allow yourself to be there with those feelings and, like you're saying, mother and nurture yourself, that's when we become the world's greatest healers, because we're willing to be there with ourselves. And we know when we look out into the world, that which is our reflection, or if we're seeing the truth of the world. And to be able to hold that space within yourself where you recognize your suffering, that's where true compassion it comes from, because it comes from that sense of feeling things so deeply that you recognize it in another, that you recognize it in the world, and then you can then take action to heal it.
Oh, absolutely divine. I love this conversation so much. And I'm curious if you are open to exploring a little bit more about your childhood. What is it that kind of inspired you to get out of the limiting beliefs and the limiting stories and step into something new? Because I think for a lot of people, that's the scariest part, is acknowledging that there's something broken and that there may have to be a different way of being in order for that brokenness to be examined and looked at and loved at.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny because it's still, when I'm sitting here talking about it now, whenever I'm having an interview, whenever I'm talking about this, I'm just filled with such incredible gratitude that I'm almost brought to tears every single time. And it's because when I was 8, I had this moment of epiphany when I had the knife against my wrist, and I was thinking, I had this. It was this divine intervention, and it was saying, if I can just make it out alive, I can help other people. And that's why so many people talk about the power of the why, the power of your purpose. And sometimes it's finding something outside of yourself worth fighting for as well, that makes you get up every day and search for something else. And I had that when I was 8. Now, it doesn't mean that I had that moment of epiphany and then I was freed of all of my angst. And I almost went into it deeper because I felt like I had to study it to help other people in a way. But it's finding that. I always say, it's great to have a gratitude practice and it's incredible. But I always encourage people to take gratitude, or I call it appreciation because it's part of my 6A method, but take that appreciation to another level, and not just, when you're doing your gratitude journal or anything like that, to actually go into it. Like, what's the obvious thing I could appreciate right now in my life? What's the subtle thing that I could appreciate about my life? And what's the difficult thing? The places you don't want to look, the things about your body you don't love, the things about yourself you think that you hate, all of those things that you think that are wrong with you, maybe they're your greatest gift. And if they were your greatest gift, what would it look like? And how can you find appreciation for that?
I had a really intense argument with a good friend a few weeks ago about this. And I actually felt very unable to support her in the areas that she was needing support around. And basically, like, she hates her body. She doesn't think she's beautiful. She doesn't love herself. And so what's like a basic first step for people that you can recommend to like really start with that gratitude and appreciation process? Because, I had said to her, I was like, what if you could just look in the mirror every day and find one thing? If it's the shape of your eyes or, the curl of your hair today or whatever. And she said, if I were to find one thing, it would always be a lie. So what is a one tip or something that you have for someone who's just getting started with this to kind of counteract those thoughts or those things? I don't even know.
Well, I know what we resist persists. So the first step in my process is always awareness. But the problem, what happens with awareness, is when we become aware of our pain, our natural tendency is to resist it. We therefore resist it by going into avoidance, and we avoid the things that need to be healed. So what I wouldn't say to her is go to the mirror and say something like, I love you. She could go and sit in the mirror and look at herself in the eyes and just try to be there, not judgmentally. She doesn't have to force something she doesn't feel is there. But she can sit there and look at herself in the eyes and feel those feelings coming up and allow those feelings to be there.
Mm. One of the things I love, and I tell my clients to do when they're having challenges around forgiveness, is to use the mantra, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I love you.
Yeah, ho'oponopono.
Yeah. It's just so beautiful to say, I'm so sorry to ourselves, and doing it from a place of total humility, not from victimhood, not from, sarcasm or hate, but really from a deep place of, I am so sorry, I forgive you, and I dearly love you. And when we say I love you after we say, I'm sorry and I forgive you, it feels easier. It feels more deserving. So I love that you're bringing this up, Ashley. And that was such a beautiful question, Bri. And let's keep going about gratitude practice, because I think that gratitude, appreciation is just so powerful. What does your appreciation practice look like?
For me, it's funny because I really try and have it almost be with me as much as I possibly possibly can. And a lot of that comes through a practice of mindfulness. And Bri, I relate a lot to the story you told about your friend, because it's really funny. Until after my vow of silence, I realized, this is when I was like 26, 27. I realized that I'd never looked at another person in the eyes before, practically in my life.
Which is so interesting.
Until I'd cleared away.
You have such beautiful eyes.
This stuff. And I realized that I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror, even when I was getting ready. That's funny. And it's amazing because I started getting told that so much more as I got older. And after that, and I think the more we clear away the stuff within ourselves, the more we are present to be there with other people. And so I do relate to what you said about your friend as well. But my appreciation practice is just, being aware enough of the thoughts I'm thinking at any given moment of any given day. And when I catch myself in a negative spiral, when I catch myself doing anything that's always my cue, anything that's not resonating with my truth, that's always my cue to find appreciation wherever I am. So what am I doing? Is it a cup of tea? Is it whatever? Am I really being extremely negative? And do I have to try and mine the gold in that situation? And I just really try, I do journaling, but I really try and have it be like a religious practice for me, appreciation as much as I can.
It's kind of interesting that we're talking about this because Thais recently gifted me this book on Buddhism because I've been wanting to dive into it a little bit deeper, which, we were talking about earlier. And it's like a 52-week thing. And the first week is all about gratitude and appreciation. And so I actually read it last night. And so my week this week is all 100% focused. And not that it's not usually, I have a great gratitude practice, but this week is even more heavily focused than normal.
I love that. One of the things that I've read a long time ago was that it's so easy to be grateful for what we have. It's a lot harder to be grateful for what is not yet. And so when my meditation practice, when I'm doing gratitude and appreciation, I love the word appreciation. Thank you for bringing that into our sphere. But when I'm doing my gratitude practice, I now not only focus on giving gratitude to what I'm experiencing, the negative and the positive, spending a lot of time focusing on what I'm so happy that I have in my life. But I also like to add in my gratitude practice things I don't have yet, things that I know from the bottom of my heart is coming to me because I am deserving of all love and abundance. And that feels really good too, to write down like, I am so grateful for blank, blank, blank. And it doesn't even have to have happened yet, but by being in gratitude for something that is coming, it removes some of the tightness around the impatience that we get, that we have to have what we want and we have to have it now. That sense of immaturity and that childlike tendency to want it and want it now. You kind of remove some of that hook when you really focus on, well, I'm grateful for it, that I have it, even if I don't physically have it right now.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting too, like when I for some reason, mindfulness keeps on coming up, but I do practice mindfulness a lot as well. And like, how many things we actually have to be so freaking grateful for in this moment. The fact that our heart is just beating without us asking to. The fact that we have the capacity to even sit here and have this conversation. The fact that we are even given the gift of contemplation about these things. I mean, there's so much we have access to in any given moment. And when we can slow ourselves down long enough and even just be here with who we are and eat our food a little bit slower, taste everything and see how much richness we already have in our life. I mean, it's truly incredible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to shift gears too much, but you and I had a conversation, I think it was last week or something, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly because some of the things that you said in it were just so brilliant. And so what Ashley and I had talked about was that she's in this great state of unknown right now. And I love how you talked about the fact that you were completely at peace with it. And I feel, like Thais was saying earlier, that impatience of not knowing. And I'd love for you to just kind of talk about what that experience has been like for you, that unknown, and how you, if there were any things that you did to become at peace with it, or if it was just like a natural unfolding.
Yeah, it's absolutely a natural unfolding with my permission. Everything wants to unfold naturally. It's just our tendency to want to resist what's happening naturally that allows it to go a little bit more sticky at times. But it's funny because I always feel like I've been living in the flow. I've lived about over 10 years almost out of a backpack of my life. doing charity events for kids, just traveling, trying to, follow my spirit. And I really felt like I was good at living in the flow. And I don't feel like I was such a controlling person. But of course, whenever you feel like you've reached a certain level, you're always tested. So then I was just really met with these places inside of myself that wanted things now, that wanted things to happen, the way I wanted them to happen. And that prayer, this or something better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just keep going back to that idea of like, maybe I'm not getting what I want because I'm getting what I need. And maybe I'm getting what I need because there's something so much better coming for me. And maybe me going through this is like, I didn't know we'd be having this conversation right now, but I always have that in my mind that maybe if I can be in this as gracefully as possible, or even let it be messy and learn, that I can speak to someone about it and gift something to them that might make their experience easier. And I think it's always mining the gold in this situation. It's always knowing that this too shall pass. Even in the good times, this too shall pass. And in the bad times, it too shall pass. And who are we to think when things should pass and when they should not? And for me, surrender isn't about, like, I talk about acceptance. That's the second step in my method. But I'm always like, people think, just accept it. And it's like this thing where you're just supposed to lay down and take what life gives you. No, it's about taking as much action as you can and surrendering in faith, or hope if you don't like the word faith, that this too shall pass. And when it does pass, the rainbow is going to be so frickin' bright and beautiful. And you just can't see it yet, but this too shall pass. And you're going through what you need to go through to get what you ultimately want, this or something better.
I taught a workshop on hustle and ease and finding more ease and surrender. And I love that this topic is coming up. And one of the things that I was actually reading last night in something that I called something that I study from called the Pathwork Lectures is that patience is an internal state, not an external manifestation. And I love that so much because when it's exactly what you said, I think that there's, for many people, a big challenge around, well, what's the difference between accepting what is and not doing anything about it? And you can be patient and be in action. You can be patient and put yourself out there, and simultaneously, or on the opposite end, you can be impatient and not do anything and think that that's being patient when really that is impatience, because it's an energy, it's an internal state. And surrender, I said to my the people that attended my workshop, surrender is not a mental state. It's a state of being. It's not a mind thought. It's not, I'm going to surrender in the mind, because when we say I should surrender, what we're doing is layering upon us some expectation of where we should be. Surrender is an actual state of being that we have to practice and come back to when we find ourselves being in the hustle or being out of the flow or being too much in our mind. I love this conversation. I think that you probably have so much juicy insight on surrender. So for someone who is having a hard time surrendering, what would you say to them?
I would say, it depends on everyone. I don't think there's any one size fits all deal for anything. You know what I mean? But one thing we can all do is get outside of ourselves and literally get outside and observe nature. Just look at nature. Look at how everything unfolds. And oftentimes, I love observing nature. And sometimes I even look at something like a caterpillar coming out of the cocoon. And you're like, is that painful for them? I don't know. But this is the process of life. Everything unfolds as it's meant to. And so why do we think we're any different? And sometimes when we resist the struggle, it's like when they talk about if you're learning how to swim and then you go out in the water and you're going to go like surfing or whatever, and there's a lot of waves. They say the worst thing you can do is struggle against the wave. You have to surrender in order to come back up. You can't fight against the wave. And that's the way life is sometimes.
I think this is a particular one. I definitely struggle with this. There's a few areas in my life that I definitely want to fight against things. And I think this is a great conversation because it's hard to remember sometimes when you're in the midst of it, that the way through it is to just let go.
Yeah. And what does let go look like for you? I don't know. What does it look like for me? It's always different. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on the nature of the mind and the way, the story we're telling ourselves about the circumstance. It depends, someone who's leaving an abusive relationship is going to be different than someone making a decision about their business. So maybe just leaning into the essence of surrender a little bit more each day, as much as you possibly can.
I love the way water works, right? I mean, water is always in a state of flow. It goes always in the path of least resistance. And yet water is such a beautiful strength, and it, creates sand from rock, and it can beat down the most, biggest, what is that word I'm looking for? My goodness.
Boulders?
Yeah, like it just moves through anything. And if something big is standing in their way, it just flows around it. And so I love thinking of water when I am sitting in my practice and I am bringing surrender into my life. Is water flows. It flows in the path of least resistance. It never fights. It just flows, and it always finds a way. And so how can I experience more of that in my life?
Yeah, and the essence of who we are wants to flow.
Exactly.
It wants to be in flow. It is, in fact, I shouldn't say it wants to be in flow. That's an ego statement. It is in flow. I heard something by, I can't remember who the quote is by. If someone knows, then maybe you can put it below. But, our acceptance isn't in our duality. It's in our divinity. So it's not in the parts of us who want to struggle between, oh, can I let go? Can't I let go? It's in the part of us that's actually listening to that whole conversation is flowing already.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I feel like we could be having this conversation for days and days and days. Thank you for sharing with our listeners about you and your state of unknown and surrender. This is an incredibly juicy topic, and I think so relevant for all of us. And so tell us, where can people find out more about you?
Oh, well, people can go to my website. Actually, that's where everything is. There's more about my Pain to Power thing there as well. There's free program there. It's Ashley-Cooper.com, ASHLEY-Cooper.com. And everything is there.
Oh, perfect.
And you have to go look.
One-stop shop.
You have to go look at her beautiful, beautiful, beautiful eyes, too. In fact, I don't think I told Thais this, but the way that Ashley and I connected is that we're a member of a group, and I'd seen her around online, but we'd never talked before. And I went to the conference, and she'd been asked to record a video for this conference. And she was asked to play in the video a part from one of my favorite movies that I've been watching for 30 years. And after seeing Ashley play the princess from Neverending Story, I had this immediate, I have to know this woman. There's something about her. She's poignant. She's powerful. She's beautiful. And I just I have to know her. And so I reached out and was like, can we Skype? And we've been doing, bi-weekly or monthly, soul sister Skype sessions for the past 6 months.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You're such a blessing to me too, Bri. I mean, you guys, it's a good thing this isn't video. I'm blushing over here, and I don't blush subtly. I'm Irish and Scottish. My face is super red over here.
Mine is too, but mine's sunburnt. So, well, I love our conversations, Ashley, and it was so good to have you on. We're so grateful. I did want to mention one thing for any of our listeners. Some of you may or may not know that my father committed suicide. And because we're talking about it, we wanted to just make sure to give some resources for you. So if you're dealing with suicide or have any sort of suicide thoughts
or depression,
the national crisis chat number is 1-800-273-8255. We'll be putting that in the show notes as well. But there's always, like Ashley said, a rainbow on the other side. And there are people out there to support you and help you through it. You're not alone. And if you need something, please reach out.
You're not alone. Yeah, that's the most important. Thank you so much for saying that, Bri.
Yeah. Well, thanks, love. We're so grateful to have you. And as always, you can find us every Monday with a new episode on Be Amplified on iTunes. Be sure to subscribe, download, rate, and review. We are ever so grateful for all of our listeners. And we will be back next week with another phenomenal podcast for you. So go be amplified.